They can't all be pretty, y'all. Cows win. Cows win. So I think this may have been the I wouldn't say the ugliest, most dominant 20-point win, but it was times in the game where you're like, kind of sloppy. A few drives, Mike McCarthy tapped into his inner Kellen Moore with the fake reverses and the wildcat formations and things like that. But for the most part, Dallas handled business, and there's no such thing as an ugly win in the NFL. There's wins, there's losses. The Cowboys win a big game because every game, all your next games are your big games. Don't listen to Twitter. Don't listen to this. Don't listen to that. If the Cowboys won it, it's a big game. This is a team that lost to the Cardinals. The Cowboys were able to hang on. Well, they didn't. They couldn't hang on and win that game versus the Cardinals. They were able to dominate. I thought that outside of maybe one drive, I call that the Thielen drive where they just spam Thielen. The Cardinals really weren't able to get much going on offense, and just for a second, I don't feel bad for Bryce, but it just goes to team building and just how far away that team is because you get your number one pick and everybody's going crazy about CJ Stroud, but the truth is, how can you even properly evaluate Bryce Young? The offensive line is awful. We'll get into Micah Parsons having 3 sacks, and not only just having 3 sacks, but just completely wrecking the game up the middle of Bryce Young's face. And he's seeing ghosts, and then he throws the pick six to Bland. I mean, I don't blame him. When your best pass catcher is Thielen, no pun intended. I just kind of just said that he killed us on the drive, and he did. But I mean, he's a guy that's like you want him as your number 3 option. You don't want him as your number 1 option. And I think that's kind of that just kind of sums up who Carolina is. Nice place. They got some nice pieces on defense. Derek Brown, you saw him wash Zach Martin. Brian Burns is a good player. The secondary isn't bad. Like they aren't just gonna make mistakes. Keep everything in front of them. That's what they've historically done in Carolina. They put a shell on top of things, and we'll talk about how Schoonmaker was able to kind of get in the seams. And I like Schoonmaker going forward, but that's who Carolina is. But you just look at the offensive side of the ball. I mean, we all like Mingo coming out of the draft, but he's not a real weapon. And so here you are. You got a quarterback who, I mean, he's gun shy, I'm sure. He's small, somebody who I thought that could make plays. But when you're going up against a D line like ours, it's just going to be tough for any quarterback. Even next week with Sam Howell. The Cowboys open as 10-point favorites. They'll make plays, and then as the game goes on, that rush will start to get closer and closer and closer. And then it'll just be sacks. Let's talk about the defensive side of the ball because that was the defensive side of the ball won you this game today. Offense just did enough, and that's okay. You're going to have those games like that. Every game is going to be a 300-yard game. Now, next week, you may have a 300-yard game because the Washington offense is awful. But I thought that I really like Micah Parsons. I want to start with Micah Parsons. I thought that he locked in. He recommitted. Now, there was reports that he was sick. Apparently, he just drank the wrong juice or some energy drink he drank, whatever the case may have you. But the truth of the matter is this. I'm just really impressed with the fact that Micah Parsons got in the lab, didn't get on Twitter, didn't, do these things. And players are allowed to have feelings. That's fine. They're allowed to have thoughts and how they feel, and they're upset about a game. But then what you better do is come back and do what Micah did this week and have 3 sacks, be all over the field, just be a menace on defense. Then you got Mr. Consistent, Deron Bland. He doesn't say much. Even after the game, the interview, you can just tell you're just like, I mean, I'm not into the glitz and glamour. He even said he didn't even have a celebration ready. Like, I mean, the guy just is Mr. Consistent. There's just something to be said about, even how he was drafted, he worked himself into position and he never gave a position back. And, you're going to have to pay him eventually at some point. Deron Bland. Then you got DeMarcus Lawrence, who had an outstanding game. Then you have Damone Clark, who I thought had an outstanding game. Then Marquise Bell, who had an outstanding game all over the field. There was one play, he absolutely smoked Chuba Hubbard. I'm like, man, this guy's a baller. And then you had, you know what I mean? Like the list goes on and on and on. To me, you're going to need these games from the defense. Season gets late. You kind of put everything that offensive kind of put everything out there on film. you're gonna need these games. And I thought that the defense did a great job today. You know, to me, moving forward, I still don't think the offense has to carry this team. I know they're heating up and they're playing good. And CD had a touchdown, didn't have the most yards, but he had a touchdown. He had a great run out the backfield. But like I said about certain teams all over the league, you're gonna need your defense to win you games. You're gonna need the back end to play well, play good coverage. I think that's what the Cowboys did today, albeit a team with lack of talent. But you're gonna be hard pressed to find teams that have great O-line, receivers, quarterback, all the whole nine. You're just going to be hard pressed to find. I think that the Cowboys, they're in a really good spot at 7-3. They're in a really good spot at 7-3. Look, we can put it on paper all we want that the Cowboys are supposed to win this game. Until you go out and do it, I think that's one of those things that's like you just the Cowboys did it, and I'm happy about that. Now let's talk about this offense. I thought the offense was a little inconsistent today. One of the things that I was happy about, though, was Tony Pollard and Luke Schoonmaker. And not just because they scored, but just because I think when teams, because there are going to be teams that try to do what Carolina did today, they actually had a good idea on offense. Double CD, put a cap on everything, so just keep two safeties high, have them playing, from what it looked like, have them playing each third. And so what Dallas had to do, especially in that red zone where they scored the first drive with Schoonmaker, was let's get somebody in the seams. Let's split the seams. Had some nice passes to Cooks. I thought that you kept Cooks involved. One of the only things that bothered me was the Tolbert drops. Tolbert, we're going to, we can't call for you to replace Michael Gallup, and then you had these drops. I'm fair. And this is why Foots is evaluating receivers. Now, from the looks of things, because especially early on, the O-line wasn't good. Then they got better. Now, still had a good game. Terrence still had a great game. He did great because Brian Burns is a really good player. Derek Brown's a really good player. But O-line, receiver, when you talk about the draft and like team building, that's why I'm talking about Rome Odunze, some of these guys, because I think this team still may need a Robin. Like we have our Batman and CD, but we may need a Robin. But again, it's really good that Luke Schoonmaker showing that he can be a pass-catching threat. Big body, true 6'6", hard to bring down. You're talking about a guy who had no Luke Schoonmaker had no offseason, no training camp. He's coming in, he's getting more confident. So to me, I think that's definitely something to build on. And last but not least, I think the most special thing is Jimmy Johnson getting inducted into the Ring of Honor. I'm not going to get into the Cowboys being cursed and this, that, and the third. Honestly, I'm thankful that Jerry Jones saw fit to put aside the differences, whatever differences they had, to honor Jimmy Johnson the right way. I think that was awesome on Jerry Jones' part. I think it's awesome on Jimmy Johnson's part, what he was able to bring to Dallas. My dad, and that's the reason I'm a fan. Like, he saw those rings. I saw the 95 ring. But just the fact that they put aside their differences and that Jimmy Johnson will be in a Ring of Honor. He's already in the Hall of Fame. So it's your boy Foots as always, guys. Thank you for liking, sharing, and subscribing. Film coming this week. Big win. Anytime you win by 23 points, I'm not apologizing for it.